Smart strategy, real conversations, bigger margins. This is Chasing the Margin podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Mr. Matt Barber, who is a very successful entrepreneur, but also a close friend of mine. He and I have known each other for a long time. Matt, I'm pretty sure, will be the person on the podcast, regardless of who it is, that I have known the longest period, because I don't think there's anybody in my life that's been in my life longer than Matt that will be on the podcast. So,
well, I appreciate that. That's an honor in its own right.
Yeah. So thanks for coming, Matt.
Happy to be here.
So we'll jump into a lot of the business stuff, but on a personal note, so let's talk about Matt and my relationship a little bit personally. So Matt is somebody that I met at LA Fitness, that he and I bonded over fitness a long time ago. I was thinking about it today, Matt. At this point, we're getting close in my lifetime to where you and I have known each other longer than I have not known you.
Yeah, that's crazy about getting older.
Yeah.
Just the theme of getting older, right?
Yeah, so some of my friends, when we cross that benchmark, it's like a kind of a weird feeling because, you know, you get older and time flies by. You don't feel like you've known them that long, but then you think about it and you're like, oh my gosh, I have known this person that long.
It's kind of heartbreaking. I heard something, it was probably about a year ago, but I think about it often. You know, once your kids leave and they go to college, right? For some people, you might only see them like of a full trajectory, maybe one more year throughout your entire life. I had older parents. You know, my mom had me at 38. And I think about that a lot because, you know, I went to Oklahoma State, left Dallas, and then I went to Manhattan. And I came back because, you know, my mom was, you know, off and on with breast cancer. And I think about that a lot, especially as we get older. Like I'm 37, just turned 37. I'll be 38 next year. And my mom had me at 38. So to me, it's also the idea, you know, she passed away a couple years ago, that I will see everything from how my mom saw me from the day that I entered her life. And think about how much growth we have as we get older. It's kind of crazy to think like how mature she was when she had me. I'm not trying to say I'm overly mature, as we know, but like there's so much wisdom and growth. But I think also you hear a lot of old people talk about you pick your family when you pick your friends.
Yep.
And I think that we're at the precipice in our lives where we see that because we might be just like a child who's leaving after 18 years. You'll have friendships that are a lot longer, right? Than like the really intense time that maybe you spent with your family.
Yeah.
You know, and then you make your own family like you and Alex.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of my either family or close friends are crossing those markers where they're either some of them, their parents died pretty early, or they, like you said, this is when their parents had them, or they're reaching ages where their parents had significant life events.
Yeah.
And it's that, oh my gosh moment, kind of like you're saying, where it kind of makes you take a step back and look at life and almost reevaluate, which is a really healthy thing to do.
Yeah. Another part on that I found interesting, and it's a blessing and a curse, but I have a very close friend of mine is going through losing a parent. And I do this with a lot of my guy friends. It's something that you and I know quite a bit because like we've talked about feelings, emotion, like we have conversations of depth, which is pretty consistent with my friends. It can also drive friends away, you know, that just don't like, you know, really in-depth conversations. It's kind of more like your party friends, your transactional friends and stuff like that. But seeing those friends, especially ones who are not in a relationship, that don't have, you know, good female friendships, good close, you know, women or in a relationship, right? Or, you know, gay, straight, whatever, a counter partner to really lean on about the emotional side. And this close friend of mine has, you know, lost his father. His father was older, just like, you know, my parents were older. He's traveled most of his career, brilliant, you know, focused on his hobbies, things that he really enjoys. And, you know, to be there for a friend when they're losing a parent is also something that kind of helps you grow a little bit because you can just be honest. You're just like, hey, the world changes. The lens gets a little darker. There's nothing that you feel better except for maybe a little bit of their strength comes into you. But, you know, he was kind of being treated like an elder. Like his mother was looking for him. Like his brother and sister who's older, just like I have, is looking for him. I was lucky that my older brother really stepped up and was incredible while I was working so much. Because my mom was in hospice for 6 years before we lost her. But having that conversation when you tell your guy friend and you're the emotional support friend to be like, hey, I'm going to do what I wish I could have had on the other side. you're going to have to grow up and be there for your family, and it's not fair and it sucks. And I'm not going to mince words. You got to step up.
Yeah. I think that's good. That's one of the things that I'm kind of excited about, and we'll dive into it and Bob in and out with kind of the emotional side of things. Cause you know, a lot of times in business or just with men in general, it's that, oh no, we're gym bros, tough guy, like no emotion, like, yeah, bro. And then don't talk about what's really going on.
Yeah.
But especially our relationship. And then like you pointed out, the relationship that you have with a lot of your friends, it's a way deeper relationship than that. It's, yeah, we want to succeed. We want to have bro time, but even though men may not be emotional at times, men are still humans and humans have emotions, and it is what it is.
I also, from an ADHD perspective, I can only lock in when it's something interesting and real. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we can do pleasantries and all the other stuff, but I want to know how you're doing. I was that friend, like, we can go and dance and go to the bars, but I was like, I really want to go to a bar where we can hear each other talk. I want to know how my friends are doing, right? So it's not even emotions. It's just like I can lock in and start getting my dopamine drip from my inefficiency of dopamine and serotonin because I actually care about this person and what they have to say.
Yeah.
And it's not, I tried a new burger spot. It was great.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that I was going to bring up was you and I have gone through all kinds of emotional things, events together. One of those being you actually hosted my engagement party at your place.
It was awesome too.
It was awesome.
Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, we had, I don't know, probably 40, 50 people there.
Might have been a bit more. People showed up for you and Alex like they do.
But yeah, it was a blast. You know, it's one of those experiences that I will always remember, and I'm sure you will as well. So.
Yeah, I love that. Especially even like the little backyard, you know, wedding that you had before the bigger one too. Like that felt so special. And like, you know, your partner, Annie, you know, what she was able to do to like kind of just open her doors to you and your loved ones and your family felt really close. I think about COVID often because I hate that I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't go out. We did talk. We had a close group of friends that, you know, didn't really know each other in certain aspects. We got close. We'd hang out at my apartment. I had a loft at the time. We had a power rack so we could work out and, you know, stay safe. And, you know, it's sad, especially with your wedding. You know, I love your partner so much and I love you so much and your family and how much your friends just supported you both. You know, there's some of us that have been rooting for you and Alex long before it was you and Alex. But I look at COVID and I feel bad because there was so much sadness that came with COVID. And I look at COVID with something I really enjoyed. I'm thankful for that time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like a lot of things in life. It's a lot of great emotions, but then also, you know, not so great emotions with some of the struggles that either individuals had or just the world in general had trying to get through a challenging because it was a very unique time.
Yeah.
So... Okay, Matt, well, let's kind of jump into what you have going on. So you've been in the startup venture capital spaces. You've kind of bounced around lots of different things here in Dallas and sounds like some other cities as well through your lifetime. Mm-hmm. So tell us, what do you have going on right now? Kind of a little bit about your background.
Well, I guess to summarize a little bit my background, I'm one of those weird entrepreneurs that actually studied entrepreneurship in school at Oklahoma State. I was very, very lucky to learn under Dr. Michael Morris. I didn't know how lucky I was at the time because I think he'd even tell you he's a really, really hard personality when you're in college. And what Oklahoma State did a little bit weird, you know, he set up the entrepreneurship program at Notre Dame, University of Florida, Syracuse. I think he's at Notre Dame now. And he did the same thing at Oklahoma State. But what he really taught us was how to solve problems, how to look at use cases, really made us really great consultants. And I say that not as a praise towards consultants, because I think the consulting model is broken as well, the incentive structure and everything, the copy-paste, Big Four kind of solutions decks. But it really helped me understand other folks and their strengths and my strengths. And so I was able to get a really great education that I don't think would have been a worthy education elsewise if it wasn't for this. And even I had a degree in marketing, and I chose a capstone where it was actually run by an entrepreneurship professor because I didn't want to even work with a team because I did so much in entrepreneurship with a team, like even people who were getting their master's degree in entrepreneurship and other Interesting caveat, you'd be next to somebody who exited a $10 million business, but your idea was the better one, so you had to hire them, which was really fun because you really learn the dynamics of people of different ages, of different backgrounds, their skill sets, motivating a group towards a common goal. But I was really blessed that at Oklahoma State, I got to learn more about entrepreneurship. And I bring that up because I then went to New York and thought, you can't be an entrepreneur if you don't have context, right? To how other people are solving problems, how organizations really work. Started working commodities. I worked in consumer information, basically fintech and customer experience. And then right after that, I got really into fixing projects. So major ERP implementations, but what I was really good at was fixing things that were broken, kind of creating the architecture of the where, why, and how. Where are we trying to go? Why are we trying to get there? And then we can get all the operators and think, okay, now I know how we get there because I have all that context. I have, written some things about proactives, reactives, and managers, right? Those are kind of the three types that I see in these orgs. So to get more in my background, after I left being a bit of a corporate slave and started my first business, what I really, really got into was first, of course, the venture community, learning what it was like to raise money, build great concepts. And I realized I didn't love building. What I really loved doing was solving, motivating, and then moving on to solve the next Rubik's Cube.
Yep.
So when I sold that company on concept, I started working with the Salesforce Portco and worked in the Salesforce Accelerator, getting a little bit closer to healthcare. And what I really realized is, the viewers at home might not see it, but I'm a very tattooed person. And I didn't even know what private equity was. I didn't find out until after I worked on a private equity project how hard it is apparently to get into private equity. It's very, Ivy, top 10 graduate from public school, things like that. But, in an entrepreneur mindset, he never told me that. So when I started a strategy consulting firm as a venture studio to work with mid-market PE companies, I thought that my type of people were venture folks because of how I approach life, a little bit, more tattooed, more open, a little bit creative. I thought strategy, and I still think this today, is a creative science. But what I noticed is private equity is where I found more of my people. And I think this is something that we can talk about quite a bit, is when you go into PE, these are the type of folks that say, why did you choose private equity? And they'll respond because it was the most optimal use of an hour for a high possibility of a large financial outcome.
I like that.
Right? Very black and white thinkers. So the best thing I found about private equity and where I was really valued in a completely different way, right? Which also because I was trying to become a much better operator and executor, right? Because you can have big ideas, big strategies, but if you can't execute on them and you can't motivate people towards them, you can't do anything. What I found is when a PE type backed portco and these types of 30-something presidents, right, are in these businesses and it starts getting a little sketchy. That debt facilitation catches up, market trends change, bad diligence. There's a million reasons why, a mid-market, multiple $100 million type business is failing. And what I realized is that's where my creativity and my way of looking at the market really shined, is because I was a value add to those PE folks. And when you're in venture and you're not the type of person that enjoys hockey sticks, if we capture 3% of this market, we're going to be billionaires. That's not me. That's the one part where I'm very different than venture. And in PE, I could say, well, we can do this, 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 and this, but I'd be talking to the financial folks. I'd be talking to real operators. I'd be going down the SOPs and, looking at our market trends. I'd be meeting with bankers. And really, I could plug the dots of those 5 different individuals to a path of something I saw in the market, but I could take what I thought about venture, which is eliminate the no. You can't really build anything in venture without capital, right? So I was always trying to eliminate the no, but really I was just becoming a better strategist.
Well, I think that what you just said is why you've become so successful and why you're so valuable to so many different companies. And you even mentioned it earlier when talking about consulting as a whole is, and I was reading this in a book the other day, it's one thing to be good at the craft, and the craft, like you said, can be cookie cutter. So you have these cookie cutter imprints of what the consultant is supposed to be, or the venture person is supposed to be, or the private equity. But you are a combination of you're good at these things, but then because you see the lens from a different perspective, you may see creative things that people that are black and white thinkers may not see. But then because you can see the lens black and white enough, you can connect the two dots together and aka problem solve, just like you've mentioned. And the problem solvers are the people that are irreplaceable in companies.
Especially if it's a distressed asset. These folks are not comfortable coloring outside the lines, right? That I can go in a tangent about consultants and how they don't do a lot to color outside the lines in anything that they advise. But I think that's really it with PE folks. They're just looking for someone to say something different.
Do you even recognize the lines at all, Matt, or do you just completely ignore the lines?
No, I actually very much recognize the lines because everybody talks about surround yourself with people that are better than you. I take that, I think, a little bit too much to heart because, I don't have a very good self-talk, but I don't want to change that because it's motivating. So I think I can connect the dots because I actually really appreciate, respect the person I'm talking to because I know that they are very good at what they do, that they put in a lot of time in school. They put a lot of time in their internships. They're very focused. They're very good at what they're doing. So if I can hear them and I hyper focus on it because I really care about it, that's part of the ADHD kind of superpower. I can notice these 5 experts are talking about something, but there's a line that connects all of them, and I happen to see it, right? And what these folks really love is I'm bringing out of box thinking to an in the box problem. When entrepreneurs, venture folks, it's all big, it's all massive. They can see it, but they're not seeing it in black and white strategy. It's like I call it 5D chess. And when I was working with Alpine investors in San Francisco, Matt Muller, shout out to Matt Muller, VP of technology for Alpine, Northwestern guy. He's just, man, he's amazing. He's now leading their AI initiative. One thing he always reminded me when we were turning around an asset together is, Matt, you're in 5D chess. Your expertise and your value is how you can drive it down to checkers.
Yes.
Blocking and tackling.
Well, that's what I've asked you to do today is, Matt, you understand things at such a deep, high level, but I need you to break it down for those of us who need the checkers explanation, not the 5D chess explanation.
And that's what I've realized is the power, right? And I think that even comes to concepts, which I said where, why, and how. When we come into these businesses, and again, I'm going to talk about this a lot because it's a lot about my story, is how these kind of 2 swim lanes kind of work and what it can do with the community, is when a company's gone through 3 or 4 transactions, PE for a long time, there's a lot of them that are trying to get to IPO readiness, right? Now it's kind of just mid-market, handing off, platforming, bolt-ons, those kind of things. But when a company didn't do good diligence, you're in the first few years, it's not what you thought it was. You've had multiple owners that have different strategies. People, just comes back to sports and athleticism, anything like that. You're not going to see anybody go, who knows our 76 initiatives? No, it's where are you going? Why are we going there? Because for most folks, when they know where and why, they can do what they're excellent at and tell you how to get there.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. So let's go back to the background, and then I want you to take us through that and then get us to today and what you have going on. So you were in New York, then take us from there.
Moved back to Dallas because I was working on a project restructuring with AmerisourceBergen in Frisco. Happened to be where I grew up. Went through my corporate career helping companies, during kind of skinny M&A as an in-house consultant. Started my own business here in Dallas, but I was traveling back and forth to San Mateo. Started working with a company out of San Mateo, a founder who could raise money like no other, but there wasn't really that strategy element, and I was a little bit lost, in my entrepreneurship journey. So I had this idea for doing consulting the right way, because I just don't think the consulting model works. And I wanted to start doing it with startups and mid-market companies, right? Where innovative, I was really attracted to intrapreneurship when I was in college, right? Creating innovation within a business, as in basically creating pivots, to be honest, technology pivots within service businesses.
Yep.
So when I came back, I met with Richard Margolin. He's an entrepreneur of the year, I think 2019, Dallas top 500 for a long time, incredible guy. He was the founder of a company called Robokind. They build robots for kids with autism, absolutely incredible cause. But they were also backed by a PE group named Trinity. I came in and started restructuring that business pre-COVID as our first high-wire client. Did did the one thing that a consultant should never do and was hired full time as a chief strategy officer. They brought in a new CEO who's an ed tech CEO, and it's a classic misunderstanding of what your product actually solves and how venture has to kind of mature, right? And they saw themselves as an education company when really they were a healthcare company. But a lot of our healthcare value prop is deep into education. But if you sell a product to someone who does not financially grow or get financially rewarded based on those outcomes, it's kind of a broken value prop. So after I went through that, I was like, I want to go do bigger things. So I worked with the city of Frisco's economic development. I worked with the city of Richardson's economic development. We worked with a company named Shred Mill that trains folks for the combine. Tony Villani, incredible person. We started working with Next, I forget where they're at, Charlotte, but it was like Next Check Capital or something like that. They were great. A company that we restructured and sold to Humana. Had a lot of success with that, and actually worked with Richard's sister, Jane Margolin, who's a private equity gal, and we like really hit it off. I tried to hire her as many times as I could, but instead she and a wonderful woman I work with today, who was a CHRO, Jennifer Hoffman, kept dragging me to all these really rough portcos from these big funds to try to turn them around. Luckily, they're all in better situations. Jennifer works for me, and Jane's with Vertex at Alpine doing incredible things. But I learned so much in those restructures that I realized, like, this is what I do really well, right? And then before we knew it, I had also created a strategy, I thought, for venture. So I had advised a company called Smart Roof out of California that was also had some in Texas, which we have friends in common with this.
Yep.
And he had come to my office and said, hey, this is 2021. I have a concept with AI and drones, and it reduces the OpEx of a roofing company by 25%. What should I do? I just raised $1 million. And excuse my language, but I said, go buy a roofing company, right? Because, we can average debt. We can put them on a seller note. They basically pay for themselves. You can lure the operator in, and then you basically have bought a dividend because you're going to do something that venture doesn't do, and it's called profit. And profit's very fun. It's much easier to do. So we helped them buy a friend of ours company that was run by him, who was brilliant as well as a Rhodes Scholar. One of the founders has now gone on to work with Jane at Vertex, so it's kind of funny how those things come circle. But after we were doing those deals, I also advised a company that got into Y Combinator that's doing incredible things with AI and cloud. I think they'll be the first multi-cloud broker simultaneously. They're doing just such incredible things. But I also started giving back to the community. We had a 26,000 square foot downtown. I would just give it away to entrepreneurs and other PE operators. And there was no beer. There was no like adult summer camp. It was just there to help folks. And in doing so, that entire strategy of I'm a venture business, I reduce OpEx, I grow gross profit, I do this, what should I do? And the thought was just do a little bit of what PE does because you're just burning equity checks. Let's use some of that money and some debt to go buy profitable businesses to prove out those services. And that really became like a pillar of what I was suggesting. And that's why with Highware Ventures, after I was finished with our Alpine asset, we found a potential supply chain to use computer vision, like all these different patents that come with like AI of things that software doesn't, as SaaS multiples are compressing, that we could actually ensure that as collateral to go buy these service businesses. So we had a big public company we were working with. It started getting a little bit over levered for me. So I also had another play I was talking to Alpine investors on, and it was at a complete venture Trojan horse. So you guys will see this as a theme. There's these swim lanes of private equity and venture and even sub lanes within that the biggest toll gate for most of these companies is getting capital or getting transactions. So they play by the rules of a hypothesis, a thesis that these folks take from LPs to invest their money, right? And I think that is a major issue of why we actually don't solve problems the right way, right? Because we can't even get a chance to solve a problem if we don't raise money. Right. So this entire approach I really loved. And before I went to go pitch it to Alpine, because they have the biggest HVAC roll-up in the country, Jane was leading and still leading the biggest roofing roll-up in the country. I had a way of taking all of home services online in a very, what I call venture equity way, kind of a venture Trojan horse. And right before I went to go present that, I was offered an opportunity to take over an FSM with somebody who did a roll-up and exited for a lot of money that actually led to the creation of Alpine Investors. He was part of the Berkey's roll-up, Billy Stevens.
Okay.
So I went and met with him. He told me what he's done, his background, what he was trying to build, how much money he had raised, some of the situations he was in. And I'll be honest, it was the first time since my mom died that I was looking at him. We were at a bar together. He was nervous, and Billy's not a nervous man. Billy's a very strong, stoic guy.
Well, it sounds like he's very successful, so you would think
Very.
somebody wouldn't be nervous who's successful like that.
If they've never failed, they always are. Always are. Failed many times. Doesn't even faze me anymore.
Yeah.
But
At this point, you've already done it enough. What's another one?
And I've had enough successes and turnarounds that those failures, to me, were just investments.
There you go. Yeah.
Right? And someone said, shake his hand. And I did, and I brought a lot of PE operators that I'd worked with through my consulting, people I created value for, people I connected with deeply, not just transactionally. And they trusted me enough to come follow me to this business, this little startup, and they believed in it. And 7 months later, we've gone through restructuring. I was appointed as CEO. The founder moved into executive chairman, which is Billy, who's just been an incredible partner through all of this. We just closed another $10 million in growth, but through a restructuring that we really needed. And with this, we're launching 2 other businesses to be able to do this type of strategy where it's roll up and it's technology that reduces OpEx. But we have a really, really fun marketplace concept that nobody would see that I think is going to make us the Amazon of home services. And we've got a lot of really great families that we're talking to, great PE funds. And this transaction will close, I think, the 22nd of July. And we got about, I think now 26 meetings lined up about what we're going to do next. And we've got about 30 other businesses we're looking at buying. And it's very fun. It's very exciting. I'm really blessed to be a part of it. And I'm really blessed to have some people I've worked with and I've always wanted to work with in an official capacity right next to me. So it's very exciting.
So that's what you're doing today that's the big news that you just helped close this $10 million injection that's going to ultimately end up being a huge business down the road that kind of is the home services, offers all kinds of things to people that just have a home is what it sounds like, right?
Think of it as being about as easy as ordering a burrito from Uber Eats. That's how easy it should be for you to get home services into your home, know who's coming in your home, what's being used in your home, and when they're on the way, and how good they are at what they do, their warranties. Angie's List got 40 people that call you. That's not what we do. Thumbtack is more, gig work, but we're talking a couple of JVs, about 10 million for the marketplace and about 30 million for the roll-up we have circled right now, but we have families that are talking much, 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 much bigger checks. So we had to really restructure to make sure that we were legally in a good place to be able to take on all that capital.
That's good. Yeah. So it sounds like, Matt, I know you very well. And I know that not only do you want to solve problems and be good at business, but as you've demonstrated through your history here, you also care about people. You care about doing the right thing. You care about investing in the right things, that a lot of the ethics, morals, whatever you want to call it, of just being a good human are important to you, not just making money.
100%.
And it sounds like that's what this is doing, and why you're so passionate about it is because not only is it a good opportunity and you feel like it's ultimately going to make money and be profitable, which sounds like unusual in some of the PE stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also going to provide this safety and this value for just about everybody
Truly.
in the U.S.
Truly.
Do you think it'll go nation or worldwide at some point?
I don't think worldwide. No, not at all. I think that I could see it going into Canada. It's very much about like how we kind of operate our mom and pop businesses.
Yeah,
PE.
the culture here in the U.S. and Canada, is that kind of what you're getting at? Yeah.
And there's also nothing more embarrassing than talking to other PE folks and saying you're doing some type of roll-up in home services because that's just so hot. It's the way that we're doing it more intelligently to, one, try to lower insurance premiums for homeowners, right, is super important. Make it really sticky for these service businesses when there's home transfer and ownership. But also, a lot of these service businesses and home services are spending anywhere between 8 and 12% of their OpEx on lead generation. And yet, the one that comes to mind for us is Angie's List. Why in God's name do I not know what they're going to charge me? Mm-hmm. Why do I not know who's going to be in my home? Why do I get, as a millennial, 50 phone calls will put me in the grave? Mm-hmm. It freaks me out, right? Mm-hmm. So there's so many problems in this world, in like this area. Like home service trying to do it a certain way. Service Titan has tried to do something in a certain way, which was a competitor of ours, which to me is just a hodgepodge of as many features as possible because blue collar folks do not like custom ERP implementations. And the prices that come with it, which I don't blame them. But it basically in home services, a lot of these people like being online, half of them aren't even online.
Yeah.
Right? Like, doing invoices digitally is a big deal.
Like a plumber, for instance. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And like Service Titan, they make about $250,000 per employee. Just had their IPO, a very big business. They still only have 8% of the market. Right? And
so lots of opportunity.
Lots of opportunity. But the reason, and I'm so passionate about this, because when you meet, like I'm very blessed to have contractors as my investors, people who are successful contractors. Billy was a successful contractor that got to learn, what P is doing to make these businesses better. But what I love about it so much when I look at these folks is I would never get my hands dirty the way they do. I would never go build a fence. I would never get in the third attic, to try to get a pancake AC just right. These are the real Americans, the real backbone of America, right? And the thing is, with AI coming for white collar jobs, like it might come after accountants, it could come after lawyers, it could come after for so many different people, and it's going to disrupt our middle class, I think, so greatly. It is the perfect time to upskill the blue collar workforce to be that future middle class, because robots aren't going to catch up fast enough, right? With AI, that means we need data centers. It means we need infrastructure. It means we need things built, right? And these folks should be rewarded for that. And how these folks kind of run those businesses, one person does really well if they run it really well. The rest don't do great, and it's really depending on how great your boss is.
Yeah.
Right? So bringing them online, we're actually doing a lot of what Cuban did. With pharmaceuticals, all Mark Cuban did is opened up a marketplace and said, we charge 15% margin. That's simple.
Yeah.
And so how simple would it be to just say, here's who works here, here's what it costs, here's when they're going to show up, here's who's going to be in your home.
Yeah, I like that. So one thing that I'm always curious about with all different types of entrepreneurs, because even in the same industries, they may have gone about this in a different way. When you started your own business, and let's specifically say Highwire, because I knew you back then, did you self-fund it? Did you have an investor? Did you get a loan? What was that experience like? Why did you decide to do it the way that you did it? Was it tough? Was it easy? Tell us kind of about the experience of ultimately you've got to make money to at least live. How was that?
Self-funded.
Self-funded.
It sucked. It was really hard. It was really hard. It's really hard. I mean, the average age of a successful entrepreneur, I remember when I was in college, was like 34. It's now like 56. Just almost like the average home buyer. It could be student loan crisis, could be a lot of things, but I think at the end of the day, it's because it is really hard to take that risk. Just like it's hard to get a down payment for a home, it's really hard to not have health insurance. Like it's real. Like I tore my ACL when I started my first company. It's still not repaired.
Yeah.
I had 3 knee braces on, walking around downtown Dallas raising capital. You know, which you look back on it, it builds character, but it is really, really hard to do. And so with Highwire, I self-funded. I was lucky that it was during COVID, so we actually got some relief, from the money that we were making. But, I was running a service business as a way to make money to learn about businesses we wanted to create, right? So it was easier than some folks who go and raise like $5 million can only pay themselves $60,000 a year. Now I'd say I had months where I didn't pay myself, months upon months. But I was also very lucky that, I had a great, partner that was able to reach out. I got, advice from you and other accountants and, finance folks. But yeah, I was all self-funded, and even all the way through Highwire Capital, we raised money for Highwire Capital, but I was kind of already, leaving after I got the deal set up for this new opportunity.
Right.
But all the way through Highwire Ventures, even in the big office space, we still gave our office space away to entrepreneurs. We brought in a small company so I could learn about home services. They paid a fourth of what they should for the area that they got. So it's also a moral question that I had to run into is I would charge people what I could, but it would always be at a discount, right?
Right.
And self-funding is really hard. And I've talked to entrepreneurs who took out second mortgages, take out loans. That I put my initials on loans as well, and it's really hard. And I wouldn't advocate that people do that.
So that's one thing. I'm a storyteller. I love to listen to stories as well. That's one of the reasons why I love podcasts in general is listen to people's stories and listen to your story. What do you think is maybe a time that you remember that's one of the hardest things you had to do, being self-funded, maybe a hard decision that you had to make, or just a hard couple months. Tell us like why that was happening. What decision did you have to make? What was going on?
So when I was an entrepreneur, I was living at the lofts at Mockingbird Station. And I am so thankful to everybody who's ever worked there. Because when things were really tough, I would just move apartments every 7 or 8 months because I would be able to get like an extra month or two for free. Right. And then I would just make that for take that time and save my money. But also they would have like specials, like $1,000 for tenants who got people to move in. So I would just sell to get any of my friends into the lofts. One, I loved it there. So like lofts at Mockingbird Station, greatest place to live ever, like truly. But like any way I could make money. Like when I worked with our friend Matt Brown, we would go like bartend startup events. But I remember a really, really hard time where I had a panic attack under the bridge that goes over Mockingbird where the dog park is. I was with my dog Larry, and it was raining. And ADHD, I already have a ton of internal dialogue that goes everywhere. It's very chaotic. But I had lost a lot of weight that year. I'd lost about 100 pounds, I think, the year before, or it was 2 years before, something like that. It was 2 years before. And I had bulked a little bit. I had gone through a breakup. High wire, was going through some stuff. And it was just hard. And I had really gotten in with RoboKime, but RoboKime was getting a little bit sketchy, and I had to go find clients again because they weren't really listening to what I had to say at this point. And I just, my mom was sick. I don't have a relationship with my dad. My brother and my sister, hardest working people, but they have kids who have kids. And I just felt really alone. And I started thinking about it over and over. And then 30 minutes later, I woke up. It was raining. There were people all around me, looking for where I was and what was going on. And I was just shaking in a ball. And I don't know. I don't think it's healthy the way I reacted to it. I reacted to it like man up.
Oh, yeah. That's not healthy.
I don't think that's healthy. So then I pushed my feelings further down. It was just like, the whole grind culture I also don't think is super healthy. I'm not against it. But it really taught me something about myself. And I really kind of like, I was looking at podcasts at the time and what was going on with like the way like men would encourage each other. And it was very what they consider alpha. It was like, wake up, grind, eat steak and eggs, go to the gym, be at the office for 14 hours. And I realized I was like, that's not at all what I need. I need to talk. I need to feel what I feel, and I need to get back to work. Because every time I pushed it down, I was this close to being in a ball under a bridge while it's raining.
Yeah.
And nothing can get done with that type of cortisol, that type of inaction. And I think that honestly, a lot of people who go through this would serve themselves better by being more self-reflective.
Yeah.
Instead of self-motivating.
So you needed to talk. What did you do about that? Did you talk with friends? Did you find somebody professional to talk to? What exactly did you do to talk with somebody?
I talked to friends.
Yeah.
I opened up. I was lucky that, during COVID, I got really close with a female friend of mine who was like my best girlfriend. She's still a very close friend. And now her husband is actually one of my best friends, and love them to death. But she had a very high opinion of herself, as she should. And I have a decent opinion of myself, actually. Like, I'm not someone who's going to act like I'm the best person in any room, but I do know that the value that I bring and the things that I've been able to create out of thin air. And she's a challenger, big time challenger. And I dated a lot of challengers too. And I think for the first time, I wasn't trying to explain myself. I was trying to lean into understanding myself and talking through it with other people.
That's
like,
healthy.
Truly leaning into like, I am not trying to convince you that I'm something or this or why I do things, because the details are so important when you're ADHD. It was, I want to understand so many different perspectives about things that I do and why, because I thought the only way to advance was to be incredibly self-reflective and not trying to point it in a direction of a feedback loop that I wanted. And I think that changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think that that's something that today, you and I have known each other, I don't know, 12 to 14 years.
Yeah.
It's got to be somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I think that like back then, there were definitely moments, especially when we first knew each other, that like you said, and even struggled with through that story, that you had this idea of what you were supposed to be, and this is how
Yeah.
things were supposed to be done, and this is the gym mat that's supposed to be this big tattooed guy. But now you're so secure in yourself that you know who Matt is, you know the things that you need to do to take care of yourself physically, to take care of yourself mentally, that ultimately push you way further than you could have ever done. I mean, Matt back then working 14 hours a day couldn't accomplish
No
nearly
way.
what this Matt could do today.
100%.
So I think that that's good. And like you said, you know, I struggle with that too on the whole grind culture because
Yeah,
being an accountant, grinding that's in our DNA,
truly.
is to grind it out. But there's definitely a healthy level of, yeah, you want to grind, you want to push yourself. But when you have those moments, like you said, that you've got to take a step back because your body was physically telling you,
Truly.
you cannot do this anymore. You need to listen to yourself and talk with someone and take a step back and reevaluate so that you can push forward way further and advance way further.
Yeah, I mean, even when I did my weight loss, a friend, Scott, he had to take the weight out of my hands when I was at LA Fitness because I had dropped 100 pounds in 9 months,
Wow.
you know, lifting with a torn ACL and MCL.
Wow.
And my legs actually were in atrophy. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, yeah, your legs are in atrophy. And I was like, yeah, but my BMI says. And he was like, your BMI doesn't take into account to the size of your back, your arms, your chest. And like, I have photos and videos that I always go back when I look at it, and you just saw rib cage and like loose skin. And I just had no idea.
Yeah.
And I feel like I did that same thing with work. And I feel like the grind culture creates callousness. And I think callousness and grind and fortitude sometimes means that you miss out on incredible learning opportunities. And I think that at a certain point, the pros and cons of that really start to weigh on the con on what I think is valuable, and it's who you are. And I still think if you're going to lead people, you're responsible for them putting food on their table,
Right.
for their children.
Right.
When somebody gives you money, you're a steward of their money. It's not a win to raise money. Like me raising this $10 million is not a win.
Stressful.
No, it's an opportunity.
Well, yeah.
But it's also an incredible leap of trust.
Yeah.
I'm a steward of someone's money. I know what it can do in the stock market. I know what it can do in the bond market. I know what it can do in a cash savings account. And yet this person is trusting me to make the right decisions. And I know that he has kids, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why I don't even have kids, but I still think this callousness, like if I just was like, I got the 10 million, I'm going to grind. I think something that is very valuable that I hold valuable is I know the person who gave me the money. I know their background. I know how many years it took them to make that money. I have met with all of my board members and know exactly what's going on in their personal lives, right? Why they put this money in, what's important to them. And I think it makes you better, but I think it also makes you better when you attract the team you need to take that type of money and make it happen. It's not one person. It is, every business is still a group of people marching towards a goal. So the better you can understand what you're good at and what you're bad at, what your deficits are, and take more opportunities to learn, that's how you grow. It's not fortitude.
Yeah.
Because you can hit how many brick walls you want that you've run through, and eventually you just have a concussion. You know?
Yeah. So you mentioned in that, private equity investing. So we've talked a lot about private equity a lot. I want you to kind of tell me maybe two perspectives. One, if somebody is thinking about investing in private equity, how they might go about that, why they might want to invest in private equity versus, like you said, stocks, bonds, kind of the traditional thing. Why would they want to go that route? And then maybe we'll get into afterwards somebody who might be in private equity that's looking to attract investors and how they might go through that journey and look for investors. So talk to us about why you would invest in private equity first.
Well, one thing I would say is private equity, the amount of funds have I think it's 4 or 5x'd in the last 15 years, right? Which is a good and a bad thing. A lot of people put a negative connotation on private equity. for as much negative, there's so much positive too, like truly so much positive, things that wouldn't even happen, right? Like the local, like a friend of mine's father-in-law sold a fencing business for tens of millions of dollars. That's just something that the company goes away if you don't have somebody to hand it off to,
Right.
years before. They really bring industries up, without regulation. So it's without like a lot of government insight. But on the flip side, there's a lot of PE that's really just, money manipulation. But private equity is always striving for a 20% return. I mean, venture technically is as well, but those are really big. They're trying to get multiples, in the business they put in. They have a lot that fail, right?
Yeah.
1% of companies that raise, I think, a Series A sell for over 50 million, right? But in PE, if you wanted to get involved, I mean, the first thing that you want to get involved is somebody who can like lead a syndicate. And this is typically when we talk about check sizes. Like, unless you're ready to put in $250,000 to like $1 million yourself, like it's not something you should be a part of. I would recommend, even if you want to get in certain PE funds besides like real estate or anything like that, typically we want to see somebody that's got over $1 million in net worth based on assets or liquidation or liquid, anything like that. But PE funds are massive. Like there's from BlackRock and Vanguard, all the way down to like an independent sponsor, which is just somebody who has a couple capital, family offices that will put maybe $4 million together to go buy a manufacturing business with a little bit of debt. But I think the one thing is, if you really want to get involved and you meet some of that criteria, is go talk to somebody who's done it before and somebody who's like a syndicate lead, especially if you're a smaller check size. I would 100% caution spending more than like $50,000 to $100,000 on your first like kind of PE investment.
Okay.
But find someone who has a Rolodex, has proven their IRR return, especially PE has seen a dip in LP returns of about 49%. But even 49% from a standard 20, is beating the market quite frequently.
Right.
So I would say look for syndicates, look for leads, look for folks that you can invest alongside and learn about the process. Like, look at the financial updates, look at the financial process, look what comes out quarterly, look at, market valuations. The amount of people that I talk to that are venture entrepreneurs in Dallas that don't know that SaaS is compressing in its valuation blows my mind. So if you want to get involved in PE, I mean, like, you're a real estate guy. There's great PE funds here in Dallas that invest in real estate, and it's something that's more tangible for people to understand.
Right.
Right. So it's like you can get in a syndicate because they're trying to buy 4 commercial properties and build, residential around it. Right. That's something you can ascertain, you can understand, you can look at their success rates. They might take cheaper checks, but I would caution against investing personally unless it's into a syndicate where there's somebody who represents you and the other people in that syndicate and have done it before. And they'll typically just charge you like a carry.
Okay.
Right? A carry that's a profit interest.
Okay. I got you. So then a couple questions on that. If somebody's looking for a syndicate to invest in, what's the best place to look? Is it through a friend? Is it online? Like, how do you kind of find a good syndicate? I know there's a lot of things that you have to do your own due diligence on, obviously, and a friend would be the easiest thing to do. But for somebody that doesn't really know somebody, is there a good way to research that?
I think a better thing to do is to find something you really like. Okay. Find an industry you really like, find market trends you like, a total addressable market that's large and it's changing. And in PE, you're not the first to do anything. You're typically the 30, 40, 50th, right? And that's good because this is supposed to be a little bit safer. It's downside protection, it's consolidation plays, roll-ups, growth funds, things like that.
Yeah.
So I would look more at an industry you're really interested in, find a fund or definitely a smaller fund. I wouldn't, try to go, to some of these big players with multiple billions in AUM, which is assets under management. I would look at the ones that are like $300 million fund, $50 million fund, like first time PE funds, whatever, because they left another bigger group and they found their own focus, and then reach out to them and say, hey, do you have any syndicates or anybody that you work with? And then kind of interview them.
Okay.
Right?
I like that. So then the other question that came to mind was, is there like a time frame that you typically see someone will invest, like you said, $50,000? Is there a time frame when they actually should start to maybe get some of that money back? Does it take a while? Like, because, it's not like a Robinhood where you can go put 50 grand in and then
not at all
immediately withdraw it.
Yeah. On the typical like mid-market, especially, it's like a 5 to 7 year hold.
Okay.
Right. So that's but you see 3 and 5 year plays. You see 10 years and further plays, right? Some of those might pay out dividends. They might pay out, profit interest, things like that. So there's kind of a flavor for everybody, but the most typical is, in the mid-market is like a 5 to 7 year hold.
That's good. Yeah. So I think that's really good practical advice is a couple things there. One, look for an industry that you really enjoy, that you wouldn't mind researching yourself to try to understand who's a good representative of that space in the PE world.
Yeah.
So that's one really good spot there. And then also it sounds like maybe ask that PE firm, hey, what's the expectation of when I should start either expecting dividends, expecting to get my money back, when are we exiting? And it sounds like maybe they would at least have an idea. And obviously there's risk involved, just like with any investing, but at least that firm would tell you some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you want to ask about is their, expected IRR, internal rate of return, how long their hold rate is, if they're platforming. So is this going to be buying one asset and holding it and optimizing it, or is it buying multiple, which is a typical consolidation? You remove the back office. So it'd be like if I go buy 4 firms and they have 4 CFOs and they have 4 COOs and they have 4 CMOs and they have 4 accounting softwares and they have 4 marketing, like you take that off, you've already improved the valuation of the business by 4 or 5%, maybe even more. And those are like the most typical easy plays. You leverage debt. If rates are good, fantastic. You buy another business, you bolt that one on, right? You increase the gross profit. I mean, in our world with like blue collar, it's like we want to see like a 20% gross profit. That gives you more EBITDA uplift, right? So like a perfect target would be like a 37 million a year business that's at 5% gross profit. And you're like, ooh, if I can optimize that business and go buy 15 to 20 others and buy them at a 6 or 7x EBITDA, use the bank for 3, do some seller financing, you're basically buying a company at 7 times its profit value. Just to make it simple. It's not really what EBITDA is, but it's good enough, right? And you're using 3 that's debt. You're using probably 1 that's kind of seller finance, which is kind of paying themselves back, right? And then you're using equity checks for the other 1 or 2. But when you buy it, if you're bolting it on to, a mechanism of a platform, you've spent a 7x to get a 12 to 14x return.
Yeah.
Right?
That makes sense. So it sounds like maybe some of these businesses that have those lower profit margins might be more appealing to private equity because they know what industry standards are, and then they see somebody who might be 10% under that and see a huge potential there. So that's interesting.
And that's where you want to see a success rate in the integrators and the operators within the team.
Okay.
Right? So like if we're buying an asset to hold and we've got some great talent, young Ivy League kids that we're going to put in here and we're going to make it better, it's still risky, right? Integration, also these deals, like if you're buying these businesses, they're not sophisticated. That means you're buying it from someone who's not sophisticated, which means deals can take longer. Deals can get sketchy. If you're an independent sponsor, you're a smaller fund, like you got to get this deal done to be able to be, getting your carry and getting your management fee. You got to deploy that capital, which is another issue. Like they have to deploy capital, right? So it's not even like obsessive with problems. They got to deploy capital in a certain amount of time. 1, to start getting their fees, but also to start being able to show their internal rate of return to their LPs.
Okay.
Right. So there's always integration risk. If you're in like a home service element, there's a lot of risk because of how they kind of run their business. As you know, probably better than anybody, this is the easiest kind of what I do and you do is you represent some of those people. You know how they pay themselves. You know that their cars are all on the business. You know that they lease their cars back to themselves and then they get the asset after it's depreciated. You know that they pay themselves $40,000 a year and then they give themselves like a $300,000 or $400,000 check at the end of the year. They're not really margin efficient, for an optimal sell, right? So even understanding like a lot of gold mines of like home services, it still comes with its own teeth, right? So like if you're investing in a fund that's buying like 2 or 3 enterprise SaaS businesses, they're probably going to be, pretty intelligent on their side. They're going to have good lawyers, good financial stewardship. Their data room is going to be clean. Integration risk is going to be low. But even with those businesses, integrations can take a year and a half, right? But when you look at the whole gist of it, there's still risk. And all of them come in different shapes and sizes. But there's also some deals that are just super black and white easy. It's just, we're going to get you a 10, 12% return. We're going to take out these folks. We're going to do things a little bit different. There's a change in the market, right? There's a new technology that's so cheap. There's carbon credits. There's, all these things that go in where it all just goes into a DCF Excel sheet and, the math, and then it's on them to execute.
Yeah.
So I always like to, I typically in the mid-market work with funds that have value creation teams, like internal people just ready to jump in portcos and help them be better.
Yeah.
Right.
Another thing that you mentioned that I just want to touch on and have you explain on a very basic level, because it's a really key part, in my opinion, of the private equity sector, is what you refer to as bolt-ons.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that with maybe private equity is looking to buy a business to be a bolt-on to some of their other businesses they already have. Explain to us like what that might look like, and then how that helps those other businesses become profitable.
Yeah, and I'd like to first say I'm probably not the best advocate for private equity since I'm typically fixing broken private equity assets, but I've done quite a few deals. And I think the best way to kind of look at it is we have anchors and bolt-ons. So I think to kind of simplify it a little bit is if I'm going to go buy 15 businesses, and I want to make sure that when I buy and I integrate those 15 businesses, that they are managed to their maximum potential. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you don't have one asset, one business, one brand that is operationally efficient, that has great leadership and great managers, right? That has a great brand and great brand reputation, right? That is what we call an anchor. As in, that's a business that's maybe already at 20% gross profit in my world, as I was explaining earlier. But everything is detailed. Like in our business, we're already M&A ready. That's what we try to do. Where basically if everybody dies in the business, there's an operational symphony plan that shows exactly how to pick up this business and run it. What everybody does, what decision trees, what are the PO, financial stewardship models in the back end, how do we get these things approved? Where's legal for this? What is our contract if somebody isn't paying? What happens in legal disputes? Like all of that is just laid out in a game plan.
Very
right?
processed, detailed, all the processes. Yeah.
So that you can think of it like a map quest, right? Old school, right? You want to make sure that those roads connect.
Yeah.
Right. So a bolt-on, the value of a bolt-on is you already have a very efficient process with a very good team, and you're just bolting on their business and its similarities, and you're matching it to the way that the anchor operates. You're expanding it geographically, you're expanding it in its total addressable market, which might just be different services that you can provide that are complementary to the anchor services, right? And then you're pulling out some of that leadership, that executive back office spend. So in a bolt-on is typically only as effective as how valuable the anchor is.
Gotcha. Yeah. So anybody who's in the private equity space who might be listening, it sounds like if you don't have the anchor right, then we haven't even made it to a place where the bolt-on is a conversation at this point.
Unless it's what they do extremely well. Like they're going to buy 10 businesses and they're going to find their anchor leaders throughout those 10 businesses and they're going to make those processes. But that means that we're talking about more of a 7 to 10 year play because you're spending 2 years integrating and making that operational symphony so that they act as an anchor.
Gotcha. So, Matt, I love to listen to you talk about PE. I could listen to you talk about it all day long because, that's high level stuff. It's interesting to me. It's obviously interesting to you because that's what you do. But I want to get into maybe some deeper things and also some general things as well. So what's one business principle that you feel like is something that Matt Barber lives by, that regardless of whether you're in PE, regardless of whether you're working at Chipotle or Best Buy or in accounting, what do you think is a business principle that is just core to who you are?
Judge people by their intent. I think this is big for me. Everything I say can sound salesy sometimes. I'm very passionate, but it's because I believe what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Right? I never say anything with the intent of saying something that's not true. Transparency and honesty is so important, but I think a lot of people hear that as being right or wrong. And to me, I judge people and I judge myself based on the intent. Was the intent to be honest and genuine and real? Because I will never fault someone for the appropriate intent. Because you can be right and wrong, and we're going to be right and wrong. I've been wrong multiple times. I might have been wrong on some answers here, right? But if the intent is right, like that is what's really gotten me through. And also game theory even supports it. Being honest, being vulnerable, being kind, to me, it's called spreading a light, and like measuring people based on their intent, you have a better chance of success.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's very evident with the people that you have around you in business and personal life, is they're not somebody who is two-faced, who acts one way around Barber and then acts differently when they're not around you. Like their intention is to be who they are regardless of what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
So then on the flip side of that coin, what is one business principle that's very common that you might think is bogus, that's like people say, oh, well, you do this to become successful, or
grind culture.
I thought you might say it.
I mean, grind culture, the grind is so real. Like, but to be honest, it's not grind. It's just getting up when you're on your back. Like, that's the grind. The grind is that you can be shoved down, kicked down over and over and over and over again, and you get back up. I have talked to some incredible people. Melissa Weiner is the CEO of Lighter Capital. She's out in Australia. She had 2 exits, started working in venture capital. And she said something that really moved me when I was speaking at their CEO conference. And she said, what changed everything for me is realizing that I'm meeting people that she believes, now Melissa's brilliant, so this is her words, people that she believes are so much smarter and so much more capable than herself. Again, her words, I don't believe that. She's amazing. Not making it. The amount of luck in what we do, now PE might be a little bit different, but the amount of luck in just being an entrepreneur, starting anything or doing anything, or anything massive happen in your life, plays such a pivotal part. But what people forget is when you're getting knocked down, you're in kind of the Rubik's Cube of where luck can happen. So that's why a lot of, I think, very successful people hate hearing luck. And I think it actually dooms a lot of American society. Is luck is a word that I think has connotations for a lot of people who are successful that hate hearing it, because they're only lucky because they kept getting back up, but they're still lucky.
So then let me ask you this, because based off the way that you've answered several things, I think it'll be really interesting to hear your opinion on this. And so far, all the guests we've had on have had basically the same answer to this question, but it sounds like maybe you might have a different opinion. So if you were to rank these 3 things, how would you rank them and why? Hard work, skill, luck.
Luck, skill, hard work.
Oh, interesting.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so that's very different. Why do you feel that way?
I think because I'm a realist.
Okay. And what does that mean?
I think that people who are successful, people that build things with their hands, people that make things happen, lose light of the little things that have had to happen to be successful. I will take luck. Like when I say from a ranking system, I'll take luck so much higher before then I get to skill and hard work. I mean, there's the classic thing we can talk about that's been talked on podcasts and use cases and business school over and over, the 2.7 GPA millionaire. Me.
Yeah.
It's literally who I am.
Yeah.
And it's because not of hard work. It's because work, like hard work, people think 12, 15 hours, the grind culture. Well, the people, the entrepreneurs, the people that see things differently go, why are we taking 14 hours to get that much work done?
Right.
I'll do it in 4.
Right.
Right? So hard work, done. People who say hard work is they're trying to tell everybody else, you can only be as good as me because I worked so hard. I have people in my family who work harder than I've ever worked in my life, and I've worked really hard. And they've worked hard for 40, 50 years. And they're not touching what we're creating, right?
Yeah.
And it's because so hard work, no, efficient work and skills that you are like sharpening a sword, right? It is a skill to be able to hunt a buffalo, generations upon generations ago, right? That is a skill. You might not be able to cook. You might not be able to dress. You might not be able to cut that buffalo. But if you're the best person at killing a buffalo, that skill makes you extremely valuable. And then if you're lucky, I mean, to me, it's not even a discussion. To me, people who would put hard work first have blind spots to reality and have a low emotional IQ.
Interesting. Yeah. I think a lot of, like you said, entrepreneurs rank hard work so high, and then luck is so low. Like they would basically do the inverse of what you do. They would rank hard work and then way down there, skill and luck.
You don't have a chance to be lucky if you don't work hard and if you don't have a good skill. But there are folks that like, there's not a lot of luck. Like I know a woman who started a company called Augie, Lily Walla. The second I met her, I go, this woman's gonna have no problem. And she had no problem. Also, it's a great business that she does for parents and for moms. But she's one of the few people I met who hard work and just she had it, right? That's super rare. Luck, I can tell you for anybody, and this is different, entrepreneurs who start a small service business, probably not a lot of luck there. It just kind of took a little bit of risk and you kind of had customers, you had clients and you did it and you worked a little bit extra. But the people that are actually idolized, the people who we see online, the people that like we talk about, we don't talk about anybody who got to where they were strictly on hard work. And those are the people who love screaming it was hard work that got them here because they don't want to cheapen why they got there.
That's true. So then here is another question that's kind of in the same realm, a little different. What's something that scares Matt Barber about maybe life or business that
AI scares me.
Okay, why? That's really interesting coming from you of all people.
Yeah, I think I'm not a doomsday AI person at all. AI is an incredible advancement that we all knew was coming. I mean, if we look at science fiction, if we look at storytelling, the dreamers are the people who tell us where we go. Because, engineers and the people who can make things work don't know where to go, but the things of their youth, the things of pop culture help, put them there. So the things that we see with AI, we see it from an entertainment perspective, right? But when's the last time you saw a secretary?
Right.
Travel agents, right? Every couple decades, we go through a massive change, just like when we had the automobile, right? All these different advancements. AI is the first time when I look around and I think 80% of the people I talk to don't get it. And so my fear isn't AI taking over. It's that these people don't get it. And the people who don't get it are not these rural folks who are going to be fine. Rural America is going to be fine. AI is coming after 70% of the folks who have student loans, who think that they're protected. They do very important jobs. They're average six-figure salary, right? But really what they find out is if you have done any job, and you're an accountant, so you're a perfect version of it. If you have done any job where you have to pass a certification to do that job, AI is going to do it better. So it's your relationship skills. It's your ability to apply that AI for outcomes, right? Those are the next hot thing is going to be AI application layer businesses. There's not a lot of companies building new natural language models. They're building applications of how to use AI to solve problems. And the most valuable problems are the ones that get rid of human capital. So my fear for AI is the people who should know that this is coming for your job and you're going to have to change the way you work and change your value proposition. Coders are feeling it really hard right now in my industry, really hard. Like there are computer programmers coming out of Stanford that can't get jobs.
Wow.
Because we don't need them anymore. That's why SaaS is also compressing. It is not proprietary anymore. There are applications to build it. They're coming after lawyers. We see what even NAR is doing with real estate agents. What Zillow did to where some people look at agents. I love my real estate agent and my friends are real estate agents, but there's some paths that you can look at it and be like, I could just get a lawyer and Zillow can let me in.
For much cheaper,
right? And 6% of a $5 million home, a $1 million home when, homes are unaffordable, like regulatory change. They're going through regulatory change. AI is not coming for them. AI is coming for so many jobs that I don't think people are preparing on how they're going to use it to keep their job or to go into the next space.
Well, so then this is something that I heard recently that I'd love to hear your thoughts on is historically technology has been a net job generator.
Yes.
So do you think AI will be a net job generator in general? Obviously, it will eliminate a lot of jobs. Or do you think it will be a net negative job generator?
I think it's just going to change the allocation of the entire workforce.
Okay.
I think that Gen Alpha is going to have no emotional skills, but I think that they're going to progress in their knowledge faster than anyone. There's a couple of high schools I've looked at that these kids are going through grades in months because they have a person, like everything that politicians and teachers have advocated for is smaller classrooms. AI is proving that. One-on-one AI learning is helping these kids move so much faster. Gen Z is the generation that realized that kind of our economic structure can be a facade. I think that they're the ones who realize luck and relationships and back office deals is how you become successful. So like, what's it worth? Millennials are the ones who we did everything we were told, and we've gone through 5 or 6 different disasters, and we can barely afford a home, right? So when it comes to AI, it's going to create jobs, but it's going to lose folks who, like when we talk about boomers who can't, save a PDF, right? And that's the joke. That's how they're going to talk about folks who can't leverage ChatGPT and DeepSeek and Gemini to create new jobs, like marketers. Like I'm talking to a business right now that's backed by the Hunts. There's no marketing need. They create all of the individual marketing based on your data profile, how you interact with it, and then create social ads that are targeted directly to you without any designer. So when I say they're coming after jobs, and if it's a net positive or a net loss, we're going to be doing smarter things. Do we still need to work 5 days a week? Some industries, yes. Some industries, no. I think that we're going to move to an economy of value for what we produce, which is kind of what we used to be when we were manufacturers. It's like, I do this is your export, this is how much it was worth, right? But I think we're going to have a much widening of kind of losing the middle class while people try to adjust to that new norm. And so I think it'll be a gain in jobs that create much more value. There are so many jobs, and people have no idea. I think this is the other thing is I think it's going to really mess with a lot of folks that, I say this in the nicest way possible, don't do a lot. They're mostly like an AI agent can sit on your desktop and watch you go through your entire process of something you do. Log into a system, approve, move, do these things, evaluate, move. They can now do it for you. And people are going to realize, dang, a lot of what I do is follow rules based on the certification, the tests I had to pass to do this.
Right.
And the closer I stick to the rules, the better. The amount of loopholes or options I know, the better. Well, you can only keep so many of those things in your mind, right? And so it's people who can take that click-through stuff and actually create value with it are going to be extremely valuable. And those people in the workforce are going to be much more valuable. But it is going to be the resistance.
Yeah.
The resistance to learning the PDF, the resistance to learning the computer, the resistance to the typewriter, the resistance to the television, the resistance to color, the resistance to social change. We are a resistant culture, and we're very much in a progressive versus regressive kind of just culture as one. And I think we're going to feel that bleed into the way that people feel about their jobs when they find that their jobs can be done by other people easier. And I'm a CEO, and AI can do a lot of a CEO's job.
That's good. So then what I try to do with every one of the podcasts is help kind of both ends of the spectrum. I want to help people who are those investor types who have the money, who maybe you've given some practical advice to, but then also some of the younger people as well who either want to do entrepreneurship in the future, maybe they're getting into it now. And this AI thing kind of leads to an interesting question with that, is talking about Gen Alpha and talking about Matt Barber. One of the reasons Matt Barber is so successful is because he's good at the craft, but then you have uniqueness about you that makes you valuable.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Gen Alpha being a generation that may not have a lot of emotions because of some of the things that AI is doing now.
Plenty of emotions, just not know how to deal with it and talk to other individuals.
There we go. Well, that's what I was getting at. So do you think that maybe Gen Alpha, those outliers who have unique abilities, who will be successful ultimately, will have not only the understanding of AI, because it seems like that will be the baseline.
Oh, yeah.
But they'll be that emotional, have relationships, be able to connect with people on a deep level.
I think that they're going to struggle to connect with people on a deep level. I think and I have an opinion here that I understand why people disagree. And and I support it even in my own business, I think remote culture is a huge detriment. I think that there's so much data to show that it is helpful in so many ways, because I just think we have a grind economy, right? We don't get to spend time with their family. We spend an hour in the car, then we spend an hour in the car back. Well, we could always go back to the 30s and said we should have created more infrastructure so we can jump on a train like everybody else. But I think the ability to not problem solve together and read body language, understand if somebody's upset, be able to go to the water cooler and have a little conversation, know what's going on with those people. I think the Zoom to Zoom interface is limiting that emotional value proposition and being able to like really relate to folks. And I think it's getting harder to solve problems. Now, I think Gen Alpha are going to be the ones that solve major problems with this technology. Like, honestly, with where it's going with, AI-genic kind of problem solving, they're creating little worlds and they're slightly iterating the data, like so much data, to be able to test hypotheses, right? I think that they're going to use AI so well that they're going to solve huge problems. But I think that Gen Alpha and the next generation are going to be the ones that don't. So like when we look at Japan, we look at Asian countries like that are so advanced in their adoption rate of technology, they're not having romantic relationships. They're struggling with their birth rates, right? And I think that is just the closest indicator I can get to where I think we're going. Is I think we're going to solve massive problems. I think we're going to leave the earth. I think we're going to travel amongst the stars. I think we're going to learn more about why we're here. I think we're going to learn more about the history of this planet, and maybe that we've been on this earth a lot longer than we think, right? But I think the big thing is still going to come back to, then it's going to have to be, how do we connect again?
Yeah. So then a yes, no answer here. If you were talking to somebody in Gen Alpha and you were discussing this, you would say, yeah, AI is important. Obviously, you know that because they're younger, that they're being taught that. But you would tell them, go into the office, yes, no.
Oh, God, yes. I think I can even make it a little bit clearer. I think I can give a couple of points to anybody who's listening to this. I think the first thing that you can do is be obsessed with identifying problems.
Yeah, we've said that several times.
Just be obsessed with finding problems because we have more tools to solve them than ever. But the best way to learn about problems is to talk to other people experiencing them.
And have that relationship. And not only virtually, but it sounds like having the relationship, if possible, like we are.
Yeah. Go out to coffee. Pickleball is a new thing, like whatever, hobby to relate to someone. But I think we can be AI. We can be at home. We don't need to be in the office 5 days a week. We don't need that. Some people never need to be in the office because they're just reactives. They just tell me what to do. That's how I work better. That's great. But I think if you want to be a problem solver, and to me, value is solving problems.
Yeah.
It tells the reactives what they need to do. It is hard to identify problems from a Zoom screen.
Yeah.
And then you can go home and use AI and all these great tools to try to solve it. But the other thing I would tell anybody listening who wants to create value in their life, monetarily, be obsessed with capital statements. Somebody can come to me and say, this is a problem. I'm like, does it cost anybody money? No, then it's not a problem we're solving right now. That is the society we live in. So what I look at any entrepreneur when they go, I have an idea to do, I go, if it's not, remember when a tweet was like 120 characters? You should be able to put in 120 characters that a problem statement in a capital lens. This costs this much money in time, or time translated to this much money. The solution is blank, which reduced that cost. That's it. So be obsessed with problems and solving them. But if you're trying to make money, be obsessed with a problem that has a capital formula.
That's good. So then let's wrap up with a couple fun questions. I always like to ask my guests different things that have nothing to do with anything we've talked about.
Okay.
So if Matt could live anywhere in the world, regardless of money, where would you live? Why?
That's a tough question. So if I was going to stay in the United States, I'm going to start there.
Yep.
That's the only way I can do it. Del Mar, San Diego.
Okay.
Without a doubt. I think the only time I ever really wanted to have kids was when I was with my business partner in Del Mar. I saw a bunch of these kids come down to the ocean, and they were being so nice to each other as boys, girls, different ethnicities and everything. And I just, kind of looked over and go, what are you guys doing? It's like freaking 2:30. And they're like, oh, we just got out of school. We're going to go surfing. I was like, that's sick. And it was like the most beautiful place. I mean, California has its own problems, but like, I just never have experienced any. I mean, I've been to Maine, one of my favorite states in the world. I lived in New York City. I loved it. I like, the Pacific Northwest. But man, there's something about Del Mar that I was like, I don't know why anybody would live anywhere else if they could live here.
Yeah, we just went to San Diego for my best friend's wedding, and we stayed within walking distance of the beach. So we had to drive, and there were just surfers there every day, all day, probably like groups of 20, just taking turns, just riding the waves.
Yeah.
Very peaceful atmosphere.
I had a buddy who just got back from a small island outside Fiji. And he said, you can just feel it when you talk to these people that they do life right, because they're not wearing shoes. They've got their feet in their sand. People are 20% happier that can see water every day, and so Del Mar is up there. And then for me, I'm very attracted to, leaving the United States eventually, mostly because my parents went through like 2 health bankruptcies and I just find it immoral. So like looking at, Norway, Sweden, those kind of countries where their happiness level is so high. I get rid of like the politics and economics of everything. I want to go somewhere where the average person is very happy.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my focus would be next is, putting myself in a place where I can see water, see people who are not, hurt, sick, dying, and are happy.
Yeah. All right. So then what's Matt's favorite thing to waste money on? Big or small, what's your favorite thing to where it's like not necessary, but you just love to do it?
I would do anything to not like cars. If there's anything I could do, I was at Glen Eagles today with a couple deal guys and a M&A attorney friend. And we were talking about cars because I have a new Z06. And we were talking about it. I was like, I just wish if I could just be a genie and do anything, is that I don't care about cars.
Yeah.
Besides like a 911 and like these big collector cars, I was like, they depreciate. That's probably why I get a Corvette, is because it's a Chevy. I'm like, at the end of the day, it's a Chevy and I get more than what it's worth. I won't go to McLaren or any of those. But so when I hear waste, I don't think I waste money on clothes. I don't think I waste money on golf because it's experiences with friends. I don't travel a lot because I work too much. But when I think of true waste, cars are such a waste. And I keep wasting my money on it and I love it.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I can stay at like a Corvette level, even though I'm tempted to do more because they're so wasteful. It's just such a waste.
They are, but you're in the 75% of who we've had on the podcast. Everybody loves cars. It's something that you just love so much, or you don't. It's normally one or the other.
Well, because when I'm driving in the office, like that, long gulag of like 2 or 3 weeks working on a deal or something's going on, or you have to let go of an employee, which is the worst. It is getting in a car that just makes you go, this is nice.
Yeah.
Getting after a long day of work, putting your partner in there and like, driving around. It is a feeling of just, okay, nice. This is cool.
Yeah. And then last thing that I always like to end with is in 20, 30 seconds, and maybe you've already kind of touched on this, if you could give an advice to anybody, maybe either becoming an entrepreneur or they are currently an entrepreneur, just general business advice, what would you tell them?
Find your tribe. Lone wolf entrepreneurism is for some folks. I think it is the most detrimental thing to entrepreneur, especially if you're doing a venture startup. Now, if you're trying to start an accounting firm, you're trying to start some of your own, like do it. You know what you're doing. Nothing happens better than when you're doing it. I know those folks, those are right. If you're trying to build something like real, find your tribe. Be exceptional at what you're exceptional at, and don't half-ass what you're not exceptional at. Find your people. Find people you trust. Find people who are exceptional at what you are not exceptional at. And your likelihood of being successful is a multiple. Find your tribe.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Matt, for coming on. It's been really great getting to talk business and also just really open up the emotional side of an entrepreneur. So I really appreciate you just being so open and honest with us about so many different things.
100%. I'll leave with one thing I'd want to say too.
Yeah.
If you work in a business, a big company, and you feel like you could be entrepreneurial, you have an idea, these businesses will listen to their employees. So I would really encourage people before they like, I can only solve this by myself and taking money from a loan, a mortgage, and other folks. These businesses are desperate for people with ideas. Just learn the way to get it into the right people. So also I want to encourage those folks who are in these big businesses that you can create value in new businesses within a company that you work for.
That's great. Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Lots of wisdom. We appreciate it.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me.